dead people. We dealt with that, I think it was Tuesday night or sometime, talking about the moral sinner and the carnal Christian. And we saw how that in reality they are one. There's no difference between the moral sinner and the carnal Christian. They're one and the same. They're one and the same. Think about it. If you were in a room filled with dead people, you would have a very difficult time finding the one who's asleep. You would have to get right up to that person and see if they are still breathing. And it is the same with the carnal Christian. It is the same with the carnal Christian. They look just like the world, but instead of being dead, they are asleep. And you wouldn't want to be in the category of a carnal Christian today. And so when a Christian is carnal, he is asleep among dead people. And verse 14 doesn't say, resurrect you that are sleeping. It says, awake. Awake you who are asleep. Arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. And so the first half of Romans chapter 7, Paul is writing of a time when he was dead and under the law. But beginning in verse 15, he writes about when he was carnal. Paul was being honest. He was being real. The thing I want to do, I cannot do. The thing I want to do, I cannot do. In Romans chapter 7 and verse 15. Romans chapter 7 and verse 15, he says, for that which I do, I allow not. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that do I. That do I. What I hate, that do I. Unfortunately, this is one of the poorest translations found in the King James Version. But we must look at the Greek to determine what Paul is actually saying in these verses. The word would means I don't want to. In other words, for what I don't want to do, that do I not. From verse 15 through verse 21, we have three different Greek words, all translated as do. And the meaning of each word is slightly different. Beginning in verse 15 through the end of Romans chapter 7, Paul is carnal. He is carnal and he does not understand himself. In this chapter, Paul begins to define the enemy. And his trouble is in trying to gain victory over the flesh, the sin nature. But he sees now the Apostle Paul, he describes the struggle that goes on in a believer's life who does not know the truth of his identification with Christ in death and resurrection. It is the conflict between the two natures in the person who climbs Mount Sinai in search of holiness. Notice the prominence of the first person pronouns. I, me, my, myself. They occur over 40 times in verses 9 to 25 of that chapter. And people who go through this Romans chapter 7 experience have taken an overdose of vitamin I. They are introspective to the core, searching for victory in self, where it cannot be found. Sadly, most modern Christian psychologists or psychological counseling focuses They constantly leaves attention on himself and thus adds to the problem instead of relieving it. And people need to know that they have died with Christ and have risen with him to walk in newness of life. We have died with him and have risen with him to walk in newness of life. Then instead of trying to improve the flesh, they will regulate it to the grave of Jesus. So in describing the struggle between the two natures, the old nature and the new nature, Paul says, what I am doing, I do not understand. And he is split in his personality. He is a split personality, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of thing. He finds himself indulging in things that he doesn't want to do and practicing things that he hates. And we all are caught into that same sort of trap, don't we? And so Paul concludes, but what I hate, that do I, in this verse. But what I hate, that do I. And aren't we all caught into that sort of situation in our lives from time to time? We end up doing those things that we hate doing, rather than doing the things that we know we ought to be doing. And so this verse would more accurately be translated, for that which is working out of me, I don't understand. For what I want to do, that I cannot even practice. I want to practice the spiritual way of life. I want to practice the Christian way of life. But what I hate, that is what I commit. That is Paul's struggle here in this chapter. And that is most of our struggle, isn't it? If you want to be honest. We all want to practice the spiritual life. We all want to live holy. We all want to live righteously. We all want to live the Christian life. But we end up saying like Paul, but what I hate doing, what I hate about myself, that is what I commit, that is what I do. So we all can identify with Paul this morning. The things that I hate about myself, the things I hate doing, that is what I end up doing, instead of doing those things that I know I ought to be doing. Instead of me living the way I know I should be living. In Romans chapter 7 and verse 16 it says, if then I do that which I would not. If then I do that which I would not, I consent or I show unto the law that it is good or it is correct. And so Paul is saying, when I am doing what I do not want to do, we all can fill in the blank. When I am doing what I do not want to do, I am proving that the law is correct. I know the law is for sinners, but I am under the same control as an unbeliever. I am actually proving that the law exposes the sin nature by doing the thing I do not want to do. I end up doing the things that I do not want to do. All of us struggle with that. We all struggle with the spirit and the flesh. That is what we're talking about this morning. We all struggle with the spirit and the flesh. We all struggle with doing those things that we ought to be doing, as opposed to doing those things that we should not be doing. Romans 7 and 7, he says, but then it is no more I that do it, but sin, the flesh, that dwells in me. Paul is blaming